started this podcast, I said that I wanted it to feel like you were sitting down with your best friends at lunch, talking about things you wouldn't speak about with anyone else. How fitting that the idea for this episode arose during a lunch with someone who had been one of my best friends, but certain events had taken place that caused that friendship to be put on pause. It was during this lunch that we had a heart-to-heart about what had taken place, and where I told her that I apologized for how I had handled things. It was also where she told me that most of what I had been concerned about was actually accurate. My friend Ellen is here today to continue our conversation, because I think we can't be the only two friends who have had something like this happen between them. What do you do when you think someone you care about is making a bad decision? What do you do when you don't approve of her new relationship? What do you do when you think your intentions are pure, but they are received as the opposite? I'm so thankful to have her back in my life, and I'm thankful that she is here today to share her own amazing story of love, divorce, and love again. It's one you have to hear to believe. So, without further ado, here's my conversation with my friend, Ellen Padlick. Well, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Ellen Padlick. So this is going to be probably very unique or different to the ones that we have done so far. Probably just because you're like my closest friend I've had on. And one of the things I've said for this podcast is that I wanted it to feel like you were going to lunch with a friend and like having great conversations, kind of things you wouldn't talk to other people about. So
let's talk about all of that. So
let's just talk about it right now. You were the one that actually brought it up, I think. So I want to tell the quick story of how we got to this podcast episode. And then we will tell the backstory. And we actually were talking outside about what this should be called. You said it should be called a hot mess. I kind of agreed on both of our parts, but this is a story to preface about, I would say, friendship and walking through something, particularly today, divorce with a friend and kind of how all of that plays out, but more specifically, how it played out for you and I in our friendship. And back in November, John and I had gone to dinner, and I don't really know how we got to talking, but we were discussing just like kind of people we had known in our lives or past people we'd worked with or been friends with. And I said to him, I really don't have any relationships that I regret not having in my life anymore. Like some people are here for a season and that's fine. And I said, but the one person that I have some regret over is Ellen. And he was like, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, I just feel like back when we were friends, and I wouldn't say our friendship ended, more so paused. Feel like maybe I could have handled that differently, or there's things I wish I could have said to her that I didn't. And he, of course, was like, why don't you call her? Why don't you say something? And right after that was when our dogs died. And you sent me a message about the dogs dying because you had known them for a very long time. And I was like, you know what? I sent you back a message and I said, would you want to go to lunch? And we met for lunch and I basically told you what I just said. So to give Ellen's story a little bit of some context, she had gotten divorced. We had all been friends in the same kind of group couples. Ellen got divorced and then got remarried. And that was kind of when you and I stopped hanging out. And I sat down to lunch with you and said, I've never met your new husband. Like maybe I'd like to, maybe I never gave him a fair chance. Maybe I was too judgmental and too harsh. And you kind of sat and you listened to me just kind of like spill my guts and apologize and say all these things. And then do you remember what you said? after I finished my whole spiel, you said,
what did I say?
You said, well, you weren't wrong. And I was like, wait, what? About what? About which part? And you said, I'm getting divorced. And I...
Again,
you did say again about died. And that kind of, I think, became the beginning of our kind of coming back together in friendship and talking a lot about kind of what we had gone through with that in your life and relationship. And we kind of were laughing. We were like, well, this is a podcast episode. And I was like, if you want to do it.
So I think I said, put me in, coach.
Yes, you did. And I was like, so then I texted you a couple of weeks later and I was like, I remember I went home and I told John, I was like, you are never going to believe what has happened in her life. And I said, and we were kind of joking, it should be a podcast. And he was like, it should be a podcast. So I texted you and said, you want to be a guest? And I was kind of surprised you said yes, because this isn't really your thing to do, but I appreciate you being here. But I hope that anyone listening today will, I don't know, maybe it'll help them navigate if they have a friend going through divorce, or if they're someone who's been divorced, kind of make them feel more seen and more heard. So
I hope so.
That was my big intro for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Yes.
Okay. So you got divorced. You had 3 small kids. Do you want to just talk a little bit about that, as much as you want to share?
Yeah. Yes. When you and I met, I mean, we were married.
Mm-hmm.
The kids were
Little.
My youngest was 4, maybe.
Yeah.
So 4, 6, and 8.
Mm-hmm.
They were young. And we had a pretty tight group of us that all hung out together. Our kids were together all the time. We were together a lot.
All the time.
Actually, all the time.
Yeah.
Every day. Every day.
Like we would hang out every day during the day, and then we would make our husbands hang out with us again on the weekends.
On the weekends.
Birthdays. We traveled together.
Vacations.
You came to Canada with me. Yes.
I mean, we did a lot of life together.
Yeah.
And the kids really kind of started to grow up together. Yes, because we spent all day at the gym, and then the ones who weren't in school were there with us, and then we would go to lunch and we would do all the things that you did when you had little kids. So I mean, we just thought, for as far as our backstory goes, and then it was pretty clear, I think, that there were some issues in my marriage, and we were close enough that was, I think, I didn't have to say it.
Yeah.
And then when I started, and I'm not a talker.
Yeah. She is not a talker.
I'm
and she is not a crier.
Of a talker. I haven't cried since like 1991.
I love that you know the year.
Just kidding.
The exact year.
Well, we'll get there later in the story. I have cried since once since 1991.
That's going to be the title of the episode. Cried once since 1991.
I haven't cried since 1991. So not a crier, not very good at sharing feelings, and I'm good at listening, and I'm a good friend, but I'm not the one usually to do the sharing. So even I didn't have to say a lot.
Yeah.
I think when I brought it up to everyone at the time, it was just I think I probably said something like, I think that this is a problem. Yeah. And everyone was like, it's a problem.
Yeah. Well, I think like being your friend.
Welcome to your life. Right? Yes, it's a problem.
Being your friend, it was like, we loved both of you and we loved hanging out with both of you. But obviously, like, you were my friend first. And so I wanted the best for you. Yes. And so kind of felt like I was walking through a lot of your ups and downs with you and by your side. And that was probably for what, like a year maybe?
Yeah, I think maybe even like, probably leading up to everything. Yeah. I think probably a year-ish. Yeah. Maybe a little less. Mm-hmm. But I just remember feeling very everybody at that time that was in our circle fully supported that decision.
Did you ever think you would have been someone that got divorced?
Never.
Yeah.
Like, I remember vividly thinking, I'm never going to do that.
Yeah.
And I didn't know a lot. I mean, my parents were not divorced.
Right.
My dad passed away, but my parents were divorced. Mm-hmm. I mean, were married when he died, and they didn't have a lot of friends, who were, I guess it just wasn't, I don't know.
Yeah.
They say 50% of marriages end in divorce, but I'm like, well, I didn't know anyway.
Right. And we, in our friend group and where we were living, it just didn't seem like a thing where people were divorced.
It was not the norm at all. I think I was the first one.
I think, do you think you stayed longer because of that fear of, I must make this work?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yes. And also we had young kids. And so the very, sort of quintessential make it work. You're not going to uproot their whole lives and do that to them. And also, I don't know if this, I only know where we lived and where we were in our lives, but family unit was like the center of everything. Yeah. Everything stemmed from that.
Yes.
Every activity, everything, like it was all about like, what were we going to do together
as a family?
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, kids first, and then kind of everything else fell into place. So the thought of not having that was, I mean, you know.
Well, and I think you did a good job of hiding a lot too. Like, I think
very good.
I knew, Annie knew, maybe like a couple of your other close friends that didn't live here knew. But I think when you got separated, most people were surprised, were they not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Me being probably the most surprised.
Yeah. Well, we actually we were laughing. It was like a vow renewal. Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember that? What year was that? Was that your 20 year?
It was 10 years.
It was 10 years. Oh my gosh. I'm just aged.
It was
big
10.
Time.
No, that's
It was 10 years?
It was
your vow renewal?
It was 10 years. And I felt.
You know, people say that's a curse. You should never renew your vows.
You didn't tell me that then.
I didn't know that then. I think I heard that after. I was like, oh.
No, we were all at a party then. We were just like, let's have a great party.
We were, yes.
And it was.
It was a great party, yeah.
But I also, you know.
Did you know then at your vow renewal? See, I didn't know then.
Nobody knew. Nobody knew then. I didn't know.
Yeah. Like, but you knew there was a problem.
The vow renewal was very much to me like a Band-Aid. Like, let's fix this.
Yes.
Let's put this not good stuff aside and let's do something good.
Right. And fun and positive.
Hoping it was like new beginning.
Yeah. But it was not a new beginning.
It was not.
Ever?
No.
Not even for a day?
No.
No. It was just a big bill at the end. It was just a big wedding bill at the end of the day.
It was everything. It was like social media. It was like picture perfect photos and happy family and, you know.
But on the inside, you knew.
No. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How long after, I'm trying to think, like a year or two maybe after that?
I think it was a year.
Because how long were you married when you got divorced?
12 years.
12. Okay.
So it was about, I want to say, I mean, I don't know if that was exactly, or, you know what I mean? I was within a year to a year and a half after that.
Yeah.
That, like, I filed for divorce. Yeah. So.
And I remember being surprised. Yeah, it is a curse. I'm telling you, do not renew your vows. Like people keep, if ever I'm like, we should do a vow renewal. People are like,
nope.
Send me a message. They're like, no, it's a curse. Don't do a vow renewal. No, I'm not going to do that. No. I just really want the new dress.
Yeah. PSA, do not do that.
Okay. When I found out that you were having problems, I was surprised because we loved him and thought, again, like everything was perfect from the outside, perfect family, all these kind of things. He was always a great time to be around, and I loved being around him. When things started to kind of deteriorate more rapid, do you think telling people made it deteriorate faster?
It didn't make it deteriorate faster, but it made it real.
Okay. And it kind of held you accountable?
It made it like, okay, I have to deal with this.
Okay.
Whereas before I just didn't.
Yeah.
You know, and I hid everything from the kids. Like they had no idea.
When you told them, what was their reaction? Did you tell them together?
We did tell them together. And I mean, the older two were like visibly like shook, upset.
Yeah.
Maddie, I mean, my daughter, she was a baby.
She was little.
She was 5.
Yeah.
She really didn't kind of get it.
Yeah.
And I remember in that moment, this is awful, but I started laughing.
Were you nervous?
I get nervous.
I'm a nervous laugher too. If John and I ever argue, I'll start laughing and he's like, why are you laughing? This isn't funny.
And they were all really mad at me. They were like, they were all crying and I was laughing and it was awful.
I would be laughing too.
It was awful, but that was how I reacted because I didn't know how else to react. And I don't cry.
Right. That's like you're crying.
Yeah.
That was your version of crying.
It was my version of crying, which they did not
I don't think I knew that story.
Funny at all.
Did Scott find it funny?
No, none of them thought it was funny. They're like, what is wrong with you? You're like this cold-hearted person. I'm like, I promise you this is not funny to me. But I can't stop laughing.
I'm devastated on the inside.
Yeah. So that was that.
So you told the kids.
Yeah.
They were devastated. Yes. And you truly were devastated.
Yes. But I'm also a master at like repression.
Yeah.
And putting on a face and acting like, and really like The like, I'm fine, it's fine, everything's fine. I'm really good at that.
And I think a lot of people don't know how to read you. Like, I think a lot of people are a little bit intimidated by you when they first meet you because they're like, I don't think she likes me. I'm not sure. But I just think you are you just keep a lot of things to yourself.
I do.
And then when someone gets to know you, like I know when I got to know you, I was like, wow, she is really nice. She's a really fun, kind, nice person. I just did not know because I think you just have like a small circle, like you keep the people you want around you and you do a really good job of keeping things on the inside.
Very much.
Which is not great when you're trying to like heal from something.
It's not great. It's not great when you're like screaming on the inside when you want people to know and then people don't react the way you want them to react which is not their fault.
Because they don't know.
You're fine. Right. Why would anyone react to it?
Did your mom know? Your mom knew.
Yes.
Your mom knew. Was she pretty much the only one that you confided in, really?
Yes.
Yeah.
And by force, really. She like made me.
Right. Yeah.
Like she's like, was like, this is something that you need to deal with.
Right. Well, thank God for our moms.
So you still need your mom, even when you're in your however old I was.
When you left, when you got separated, and this is what I wanted to really kind of talk about as well, because you and I have talked about a lot about this, is friendships and how the dynamic changes. Because when you were getting a divorce and you thought, my life is going to change because I'm going to be a single mom, did you give as much thought to how your friendships would change?
I did not.
You just didn't think about it?
I don't think I thought about anything.
Yeah.
I feel like it was full survival mode all the time.
Yeah.
I don't think I didn't give myself even the chance to even once think about what is the future going to look like.
Right.
Full blinders, full tunnel vision. Like the only thing I really thought about were my kids.
Yeah.
And how am I going to keep their day-to-day life like it is now?
Yeah.
Because to me, that was like, I mean, I had a great life.
Yeah. You did have a great life.
I mean, and they did.
Yeah.
And they had like this like, little picture perfect childhood that I was now taking away from them.
Yeah.
So my only thought was, how am I going to keep that? How am I going to keep that the way it is? So I didn't think about, and I don't know if men do that in divorce, but I feel like women, especially moms.
Yeah. Well, you were with them 90% of their time, if not 100% of their time.
Yeah, 100% of the time. And I feel like I didn't even think about myself. I didn't think about myself. I didn't think about my friends. And I didn't think about my family. Like nothing.
Yeah. You were just thinking about your kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I remember too going to breakfast or something with you and Annie, our other friend. And I think that was when you were like, I'm leaving. And we were like, yes, we are here for you. We are going to support you. Like you've got this. And I do remember at that breakfast, you saying like, but what about this? What am I going to do about this? And we were saying, you're going to be fine. You're going to be fine. And we'll be there for you. And this is all going to work out and all of the above. And I think too, in that moment, I'm not going to speak for Annie, but for me in that moment, I also was just thinking about you in that moment. I wasn't really thinking, what are her Christmases going to look like?
Right.
What is her spring break going to look like when Scott has the kids and she's by herself? Like, will she be fine with that? Or is, because your life was literally your kids were your entire world. And so from a friend perspective too, I think I was just very caught up I was just thinking about you and what you needed for yourself at the time, and probably not so much thinking about your future.
Yeah. And I think I did a little bit, because that just gets all grouped into all the fears.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, what is this going to look like? What is that going to look like? What is Christmas going to look like? What is birthdays going to look like? Just you do. And not even that specifically, but just like, what am I going to do without them?
Yeah.
Like I've never like been away from them.
Yeah.
So how do that was my.
Which I think is a huge thing for most women who are trying to figure out if they're going to stay married or trying to not.
And I really feel like the whole time that I like was like, okay, I know this is wrong. I know that we need separation to get better. I knew what we needed to do, but I was like, I can't imagine doing that.
Yeah.
I cannot.
Yeah.
Until one day you're like, okay, I can't.
Yeah. Well, you carried a lot on your shoulders. And I think you get to a point where you can only carry so much, where you're just like,
Yeah.
I have to be done. Like the alternative is better.
Is better.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's the point that I got to. And I did feel very supported. All my friends were like, yes, you're strong.
Was there anyone that said, no, you should try harder to make this work?
Literally no one.
No. Literally nobody.
No one said no.
Yeah.
I did feel like people probably, and I was in therapy. I was went multiple therapists. The kids were in therapy. And you had
been going to therapy while you were married too.
I had.
Yeah.
We had been in therapy together. I had been my own. Like I had the kid. I mean, we were like working.
Yeah.
And I don't think it was I can't remember if it was a therapist that said it or a friend, but just I don't feel like anybody said stay, but I feel like I had are you sure you've done everything? Feeling.
Yeah.
And then finally, I think I was like, I said, yes, I have done everything.
Yeah.
This is like my only option.
Right.
Not my first choice.
No. I don't think it would be anybody's first choice.
Not anybody's first choice.
When you, I'm trying to remember back, when you left, well, you were living with your mom when you quote unquote
correct
left.
Yes.
So you were staying with your mom.
Let's just preface that with, we sold our house. We were going to buy a new one, not just living with my mom.
Okay. All right. You had your life together. You had sold your house. You were living with your mom because you were going to build a new house.
Right.
In that do you think if you hadn't moved in with your mom, things would have played out the way they did?
Think about that a lot.
You do?
Ultimately, yes.
Okay.
Maybe not at that time.
Did living with your mom shine a light on the problems you were having?
Yes.
Like from the mom spotlight of like confronting you every day? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is why she was the one I confided in. And she was probably,
Yeah.
And she never once said, stay for them.
Right.
Which I feel like.
She's your mom.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
If anyone would have said it, it would have been her because she is as protective of them as I am.
Mm-hmm.
And she did not say that, which was also like a big wake up call for me, I think, where I'm like, okay, if she's saying it, then it's something I really need to consider.
So you've left him.
Yeah.
He's moved out of your mom. So you're living with the kids with your mom.
Yes.
And from a friendship perspective of the people you knew, what is your recollection of in those like first few kind of weeks after it happened?
With first few weeks, I don't feel like a lot changed with my friendships. I feel like when you're in it, you're at the very beginning of like, kind of like your fight, I guess, and your friends are behind you.
Yeah.
Imagine you're like going to be in a fight with somebody and your friends are like, we've got your back, That's how it felt.
You're a little army.
Yes. And that's how it was. We were like, it was like a little army of people who supported me like unconditionally.
Yeah.
So I feel like that was really, I don't know. I mean, it helped me at that time. It made me feel safe and it made me feel like, okay, I can do this, right? When you start to question and then you have everyone telling you like, you're so strong. And then you start to believe that, which is good. But somewhere on the inside, you're like, oh, am I though?
Yeah.
I don't know if I can do this. So I feel like the beginning part, I had that. And that's kind of what keeps you going is that like, everybody's behind me. Everyone's telling me that I'm doing the right thing. And I'm not one to like, I don't make decisions because other people are telling me to do them, but
it helped.
It really did because you feel validated.
Yeah.
You feel like, okay, I'm not just like throwing my life away. I'm actually doing something for the benefit of myself and my children. And that's I have to look at it that way.
Yeah.
And I had my friends telling me that. So I feel like at the beginning, it didn't change, but things changed quickly because all of a sudden my whole existence was lawyers, custody battle.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't a battle.
What do you mean? You think people didn't want to hear about it? You were going through? Or you just were going through something that no one else could understand?
No one understood.
Okay.
And that's, and I had so many I'm like, oh, I'm so jealous of you that you don't understand this,
right.
And I'm like, and then you look in the mirror and can't believe this is your life. But at the same time, you have to just keep going.
Yeah.
Because, you really do have to fight and do everything that you think is right for your kids. And
did you get to a point where you felt like people were tired of hearing about it?
Probably not, because I'm not. Maybe if I were a talker.
Right. You were really not talking.
I think probably people were more checking in with me like, do you need anything? Right. Are you sure you don't need anything?
Yeah. Because I would imagine too, if you were someone who was a talker, you would think, gosh, like, this is my life. This is what I have to contribute to the conversation.
Right. And but I did feel like it was my entire existence at that point. And I like, again, hindsight looking back, but I feel like at that time was where I shifted into like, I started to pull away.
Yeah.
Which you all felt for sure. Yeah. But then again, you're like, what do? Do we just give her space? Do we let her just go through this? Do we try to like force her to talk about it? Do we, and I'm not the easiest person to like you said, not an easy read, even for my closest friends. I think it's kind of confusing in that moment to say, you just have to follow the person's lead, which my lead was, I need space. And
I remember thinking too, I don't know if you remember this, but I remember thinking too, from you saying like, it's hard to be around that, thinking like, say we were going to do something with another couple and thinking, well, I don't want to invite Ellen because that would be really hard for her to be around. So it wasn't where I was thinking, I don't want her around. I thought, I don't think she's going to want to come because is this just going to make her feel bad? And I don't know if you remember this. We had gone to someone's lake house for like a night. And I had posted like a video on Instagram of being there. I think like John was playing the guitar and you did not come. I think there was like 3 couples and you responded to my story and you said, I knew this was going to happen. And I didn't know what you meant. Like, I was like, what is she talking about? And I think I said back to you, like, what do you mean? And you said, I told you this was going to happen. And I was so, in hindsight, insensitive, thinking like, I honestly wasn't even thinking that you would look at that and it would just be a blatant reminder of you kind of not feeling that way anymore. But at the time, probably thought, well, she's not going to want to come and hang out with a bunch of couples. It's not like we're on a girls' weekend.
Right. Which I think an effort was made, especially at the beginning for girls stuff. You know, like we did do some girls lake weekends and dinners and stuff. But then you get like, I think I got to like it's like a lose-lose. As a friend of somebody who's going through this, it's a lose-lose for you because
as the friend,
yes,
okay,
because
that makes me feel a little bit better.
Because you, like you said, I'm just gonna sit. I'm not gonna invite her because it's gonna make her. She's not gonna want to do this. And you're right. I wouldn't have wanted to do it, but do I want to be asked? Yeah. Yes, but I also
be able to tell you no.
Do you know what I mean? But also no.
Yeah.
Like it's gonna hurt either way.
Either way.
But that's not the friend's fault.
So what's the right thing to do in that situation then?
I guess
invite the friend.
I guess give the friend a chance to say
no.
Yeah. Or yes.
Yeah.
And maybe I would have gone and it would have been absolutely miserable. Right. And I would have been like, why did I come?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you've saved me from that. But also at the same time, I'm like, but I still want to be, I was afraid that I was going to just be cut out. And that, I do remember that actually. I didn't remember until right now. But now I'm like, and I remember that feeling. I said, I am going to be cut out.
Yeah.
I'm going to be cut out. And so I'm not going to let you cut me out.
Right.
I'm just going to.
Right. And I think too, at that time, our friend group had kind of started to shift apart.
Yeah.
Because of some other things that were happening. And so at that point, it really was just like you, me, and Annie and our husbands, like the 6 of us. And so it didn't feel like, I guess that was the thing. It didn't feel like to me like we were having this big party and not inviting you because the party had kind of already started to fall apart. So to speak. But yeah, that was one thing that I did remember. Okay, so I do think though, and this is my vivid memory of it, of you leave Scott, you're going through your motions. Now, in my mind, it was very quick, but I don't, because I remember you telling me I'm going on a date. And I about fell off my chair. Not in like, yes, shock, but also I wanted to like grab you by your shoulders and just be like, what are you doing? I think Annie and I both said, is this too soon? And you were like, nope, it's fine. It's just going to be
I'm fine.
Everything's fine. And I was like, wait, what? Okay, how soon after was that?
Almost a year.
Felt like 5 days, right? But it was okay.
Almost a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you remember
in that year though?
Yeah.
And I think this is why you probably felt that way and probably why it's true. I did not do any sort of healing for myself. I stayed like fully in survival mode, in motion all the time. I never, ever even once cried.
You had not cried at this point?
Been sad.
Okay.
Not outwardly, you know.
Inwardly? In your bedroom, did you cry?
No.
Never.
Cry? No.
No. Not in the shower? Nothing?
No, never.
Nothing?
No.
No tears?
No.
Okay.
No. When I go into like fight mode, it's like fight or flight. Fight. And that's it.
Yeah.
So, no tears. But I do remember thought, especially now that we are talking about this and we've been talking about this. But yes, at that time, it would have seemed fast because I didn't do any of the things that you're...
No, and I knew you had a lot to heal from, and I knew with 100% certainty that you were not there. I kind of was just letting you go, like, she'll be at her own pace. I'm not going to push her to do all this. She's been through so much. Right. But then it was like, wow.
Right.
Wow. And I think like both your friends kind of felt that way. Well, Annie and I. Did your other friends that you knew from like school or dance or back home feel that way? That it was too soon?
Anybody who knew me well, yes.
Okay.
Which was basically you two.
Right.
Here.
Yeah.
And then some friends from back home.
Yeah.
And everybody else, all the new people that I took into my life, I did it very strategically so that they were not...
I was aware. I feel like I remember feeling like you were choosing your friends based on whether they were going to be approving of this new relationship. And I was highly aware of that. And I was like, I am not going to be that friend. Like, I have to tell her how I feel. But I do remember feeling like you were choosing to surround yourself with people, newer friends.
Yes, that didn't know me before.
Right. They didn't know what you'd been through.
And didn't know my family before.
And I remember thinking, I bet they think that I am just like this big, bad, worst friend ever.
But again, I never talked about that.
You didn't?
No.
You never talked about me? Never talked about me to them? Okay.
Never. No. And, did I feel judged? Yes. Yeah. But not because of anything that either one of you did.
Yeah.
Just because of the nature of, the dynamic of all of our relationships. I felt like for the times that, there were times that we did hang out without, after, after separation and divorce with the kids and everything. And I always felt like, I don't know, like the odd man out, like one of these things doesn't belong here.
Even if it was just the girls?
Yes.
Why do you think that?
I just think because it's so consuming. It was so consuming to me, and I was trying so hard to just act like everything was fine and act like everything was normal. And there's a big elephant in the room and no one's really talking about it. And even just in like casual conversation, you're going to talk about your husbands. You're going to talk about what you did last weekend. And to me, that was like everything I had lost.
I remember when you told us about the new guy and that you were going on a date. And then it seemed like, again, that you were like committed within a week. I mean, I know this is not, but this was in my mind. It was pretty quick.
It was pretty
quick.
Yeah. Way too quick.
It was way too quick. And I remember thinking, I felt like you were doing it to fill that void of, now I have someone with me and now I can be a couple and do couple things again. Like now I can be part of the group.
I have to get that back.
And I remember you saying to me, we need to go to dinner. And I remember telling my John that, and he was like, look, I'm in full support of her leaving and I support her and all this stuff, but I cannot go to dinner and sit across the table from another man with her. Like, I just feel like I can't do that, like, to Scott. And so then I was like, okay, well, this is awkward because now I have a husband who's like, this feels weird to me because I still, really like her ex-husband. But I also, I'm not going to get specifics. I just know there were things that you shared about him that I was like, you are settling. Like, this is not, you're like laughing. If people aren't watching, her face is like, oh my gosh, her eyes are rolling around your head. I just remember like you telling us about him and me being like, no, like
I was like having had an out of body experience. Really.
In terms of what though? Like you just thought he was something he wasn't?
No, I think I was like, this is my way to get back into what I had.
Right. Yes.
I don't care how I get there.
Yeah.
I'm getting there.
And I felt this same way. And I think that I brought that up to you maybe a time or two.
I think
which was not probably received well.
No, because it was right. You were correct. And I'm like, oh, no. I'm going to prove everybody wrong. That's the other thing. I'm very stubborn and very like, once I get, I'm like, no, I'm going to be fine.
Yeah.
You all watch. I'm going to be fine.
Something I remember shortly after you were with him. So he had a child that he had full custody of.
Yes.
And I also remember feeling like you had become very quickly attached to this child. And I remember just thinking, I felt like you were just almost looking for a replacement family to feel needed, to feel valued, all that kind of stuff. And we went...
All correct.
I'm also a therapist on my podcast. I've become a therapist, a family therapist. We went on a beach trip, you and me and Annie, a girls trip, and we took our daughters. And you brought his and yours. And I think I was like, this is too soon. Like, you're forming these attachments and this is just way too soon. But something stuck out to me that you said. We were sitting outside. The kids were all playing on the beach.
I know exactly what you're going to say.
Do you want to say it?
No.
Okay. We were sitting outside and I think Annie just kind of was at you about him and were you sure it was right and all this kind of stuff. And you said, I feel like all of my friends encouraged me to do something. I did it. And then you all left me on an island and went home. And I said, do you think we did that? And you said, kind of. And I just remember, it was like a knife to my heart. I was like, what? Like, because I had never seen it that way, but to hear, that doesn't matter. That's not important. It's important if you see it that way. And I just felt like, how did we get here? Like, how did we go from me sitting at a table telling you like, you're going to be fine and I'm going to support you and we'll be there for you. And all of a sudden that same 3 women are now sitting not a year later,
right
around there. And you saying, basically, you said you were going to be here, and then you left me here on what you call Divorce Island.
Divorce Island.
Divorce Island. You want to share about that? Is that what you thought? Is that what you thought I was going to say?
Yes, okay. For the most part, yes.
Yeah.
I think I remember one of you
can say
saying,
you're not going to hurt my feelings.
No.
It wasn't
that.
You're a shitty friend.
No,
you're a shitty friend.
It wasn't that.
Fine. I'm going to take it.
We're going to edit that part out, right?
Okay. No.
No, I think it was one of you said something like, do you feel like it's fat? Like, and I would get so defensive because yes, of course I thought I was fat, but I don't want you to tell me that, right? I don't want anyone to tell me that.
Yeah.
So immediately I'm defensive. And I think maybe it was you. You were like, well, if somebody just came and swept you off your feet tomorrow, would you just go with them? And I was like, yes. and as I'm saying it, I'm like, what are you saying? And both of your reactions were like, really?
Right.
And I was like, yeah. Like, why would I not?
Right. Yes.
And then I'm like, it was just, I think the rest of that conversation probably spun off of that one comment where it was, but at the time, you actually were being the best of friends because you did have my best interest at heart and you did have my kids' best interest at heart. And you were trying to, in the nicest way and the most, kind and caring and, being sensitive way possible, tell me all of the things that I was doing wrong.
And I also could feel your defensiveness, which I totally understand.
Oh, yeah.
But I could feel your defensiveness. So I felt like I was kind of would gingerly say, like I would have this list of things I wanted to talk to you about. And I'd say, okay, well, I'm about to spend 5 whole solid days. Over these 5 solid days, these are all the things I need to cover with her. Mm-hmm. But then I would be like, okay, I'm going to say one thing right now because that's all she's going to handle. And then, okay, I'm going to say another thing a little bit later.
And then I would get defensive and you're like, maybe I won't say that other thing.
Yes. Is there something you think I could have done differently, said, acted?
Actually,
and
no.
You can just say it, honestly.
No.
Like, be honest.
Honestly, no. Okay. I think there's no, there's no guidebook.
Yeah.
for how to help your friend through a divorce.
Right.
There's no, I mean, yes, maybe there are articles that you could read or whatever, but every person is different. Every situation is different. The way people react are different. I'm not, again, the easiest person to read.
Right. And you're not, you're not an overshare.
And I react, and I'm not an overshare. And I don't, even though I'm taking what you have to say very seriously, I am going to for sure not let you know that. Right? Like I am going to.
You are not going to give me an inch.
Nope. No. Because I'm like, this is what I have to do.
Yeah.
This is what I have to do to survive.
Yeah.
So like, however I have to get there is how I have to get there. I can't even bring these thoughts into my head.
Yeah.
Because then I will start to second guess everything.
Were there red flags with him?
Yeah.
From the beginning?
Yes.
Like what? I mean, you don't have to be like super. I mean, you can be.
I
don't think he's going to listen to the podcast.
Okay. This is right. I don't either. I will say the reason I brought her on that trip was because he made me feel guilty for not bringing her on the trip.
I knew it, and I remember saying that to you at the time.
Wanted it to, and I hate, and I couldn't even admit this at the time because I felt like the worst person. But like, I just wanted it to be us.
Okay,
it was so hard for me to because I felt like. When you feel like when you have like a guest in your house and you have to constantly like make sure that they're okay and make sure that she wasn't comfortable. She didn't know you. You didn't know her. Yeah. But I'm like, I'm just going to act like everything's fine.
Yeah. And I actually think I remember like making a comment to you something about like, well, are you the nanny? Like, what would he have done with her if you couldn't have just taken her away for the week? Like, so I kind of felt like, is he, and I think that was another thing because the mother was not involved in her life and he had full custody.
That's
and
another whole podcast.
Well, that's true. And he worked. And all of a sudden now, every time I saw you, you have your own 3 little kids, but you're also toting her around with you. And I remember thinking like, this is going to sound bad, but I kept thinking like, this is really convenient for him. Yeah. School's out, it's summer. And he has a full-time nanny. Yeah. He doesn't have to worry about childcare for this young child. A free one. Yes.
Yeah.
And so I remember thinking like from the get-go, not having a good vibe about that.
That was a hard dynamic to walk into because immediately it was like, you have to be the mom.
Yes. And you were.
And I was very much a mom at that, I mean, you're always a mom, but I mean, I was like home with my kids. Like, so I was like, surely I can.
Yeah. You were a stay-at-home mom.
Take one more.
Right.
I mean, what's one more?
And the kids are like, wait, who's this? Wait, what? How was because I know at the time you told me they're fine. They love her. Everything is great. And I was like,
really?
You did say that.
Shocking.
To me. Yeah.
I also feel like I'm like, I felt like the more I acted normal.
Yeah.
And didn't bring up anything negative to my, like in front of the kids.
Okay.
Like the more I acted like this is normal, the more they would just feel like it was normal. Right. Even though I'm sure they didn't.
Yeah. Okay. What were some of the other red flags? The beach trip. Now I have that. That actually is giving me a lot of like peace because I do remember that trip.
Redo.
Yeah.
Redo.
Okay. Redo on the beach trip. Okay.
Yeah. And I just felt like back to the beach trip. I knew in my heart, I was like, this is not how I want to do this beach trip. But now I have to this is my life now.
Yeah.
So this is what I have to do.
Yeah. So you pretty much went to a full-time family with him after that beach trip.
Yeah.
I mean, you might have been already.
I mean,
can't remember.
Kind of. Yeah. I brought her to like our dance nationals that year.
Yes.
Which, I don't. Yeah. Because again, it was made very clear to me that like from day one,
That was your job?
That just like, it wouldn't be fair to treat Maddie one way and treat her another way. Which looking back.
I don't think you're not the kind of person, I don't think you ever would have, but it's different if it's kind of
but it was,
you.
Right. And then I feel like I did because I was so hyper aware of it that I was like overcompensating.
To her.
Yes.
To his child. Yeah.
To make it seem fair.
Yeah.
But then I would be like, but it's not the same.
Yeah.
You know?
Did you have feelings with him, like of the love, lust, butterflies, all those things in the new relationship? Did you have those at the beginning?
I think I did, only because it was new.
Yeah.
And I had been,
right.
I had been married for 12 years. I had been with Scott for 17 years.
Yeah.
So.
And did he treat you well at the beginning?
But I wouldn't, yeah.
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 So there weren't like red flags in that?
Not in that.
Okay.
No. But I felt like what I was trying to get away from, certain things that I was trying to get away from, were very much present there.
Right. So you're just like repeating the pattern.
Yeah, totally.
Without the feelings.
Right.
Right. And the support.
At that point, I was like, feelings? I really don't have any. I'm not even sure I'm capable of having feelings.
Yes.
I'm just going through the motions.
Yeah.
And I really did. I really went through the motions with a very, very good front.
Yeah.
Even to my own kids. I mean, I just went through the motions.
Yeah. And then you married him.
Yeah.
Yeah. You did not invite me to the wedding. Well, you didn't invite anybody.
I didn't invite anybody.
But then you had a wedding part.
Isn't that also a red flag though?
Well, no, but then you had your wedding part 2 at home.
Yes.
But you didn't invite me to that wedding. But that's fine, because I had never even met him.
Well, and I
had never met him.
I struggled with that decision. And then I said,
we've never talked about this.
I know. And I had the kind of the same lake house moment.
Okay.
Would they even want to come? Am I putting them in a position, has so much time passed now where you've never even had met him casually.
Yes.
To say, come and celebrate our wedding.
So I would have come. Let me answer this. I would have come for sure to support you. But you're right. It would have been weird because I've never met him.
Yep.
And Annie had met him one time. And that was the other thing, because
can we tell that story? That's a red flag.
You go ahead. You tell the story.
She met him one time in my mom's kitchen because, we lived with my mom.
Wait, you were both living with your mom?
No, the kids and I lived with my mom, but it was when we were dating.
Yes.
And I moved out of my mom shortly after that because I said, if I'm dating somebody, I can't really live with my mom.
Right.
I'm in my 40s. I mean, this is not working. This is like hot mess.
Yeah.
But she met him. We were just like, I think we had gone to dinner.
You had gone to dinner.
And then we went back.
Because she said she hadn't got to talk to him because you were in a big group of people with your new friends.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
With your new
friends. My new super supportive friends. Super supportive of my new relationship. So you went to dinner
and you invited all your new super supportive friends, and then you invited Annie.
Well, I think you were invited too, but I feel like maybe you couldn't come because I feel like
I couldn't come. I wasn't in town. You definitely would have invited me.
For sure. And
it was still new. It was still new enough.
Right. Yes. And I was like, meet him. Like, come on. Like, let's.
So she felt she hadn't got to meet him enough.
Right. So we went back to my mom's and we were just like hanging out and talking, and she started crying.
She is a crier.
She's a crier. And she was like basically talking to him, saying like, she's been through and in front of me, but she's been through so much. You have no idea what the things that she's been through. Right. And you I feel like this is a very delicate situation that you've walked into.
Yeah.
You need to be very careful and you need to not hurt her. And I was like, really, I have very mixed emotions because crying makes me very uncomfortable.
Right.
So right away, I'm uncomfortable.
You're uncomfortable because she's crying.
She's talking about her feelings. Yeah. I'm uncomfortable. Right. She's talking about me in the context of her feelings.
Right.
So I'm just like burying it. But looking back, she was being a friend.
Yeah.
I mean, a good friend.
She cried because he, I think, gave her a very flippant answer.
Well, yeah, because he really,
he was probably also very uncomfortable. Let's be honest.
Yeah, probably.
Whatever.
I think he didn't realize what a situation he was walking into. We had very different backgrounds and experiences in life. Right. And so I had come from this, picture perfect life, essentially. and he hadn't.
Okay.
He had many, many struggles in life and like, really kind of worked his way up. And so I feel like he was very desensitized to like all the things that she was concerned about.
Okay.
I mean,
she did not get the reaction from him that she was wanting, which I think
or from me probably,
which is
also
from you.
Which she was probably not as surprised by that, but maybe more surprised by his reaction. Yeah. And then I remember thinking like, oh, well, I mean, we're never going to hang out again together.
You thought that in that moment?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And again, when I have these, feelings of fear creep in, immediately they're gone. Because I'm like, nope, I'm just going to move past that.
Yeah.
We're just not going to deal with that.
Yeah.
And I'm going to move past that. But moving past that means moving away from everyone.
From you. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So she meets him. That doesn't go well. I've still not met him.
You heard the story.
You're with your new friends. You're with your new super supportive friends. And I'm just kidding. I'm sure they were good friends. But
they didn't know anything.
They didn't know
which
anything.
is how I wanted it.
Right.
It's exactly how I wanted it.
You were able to paint the picture.
Yeah.
And he was able to come right in and life was great.
And that's all I cared about.
Okay.
Not about, I've struggled with this because I'm like, gosh, am I like just shallow? And I just wanted this like picture perfect painting of a life. But I think it was deeper than that. I think it was not so much the things, it was like the whole package, right? And like I wanted it. I wanted my kids to have it. Yeah. And I was like, that's what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to fix this. I am not going to be, but woe is me. I'm a single mom.
Right.
I'm not doing that.
But you didn't get it.
No.
Do you wish you had taken more time?
Oh, yeah.
Like, or not even more time. What do you wish you would have done?
I wish I would have been by myself.
You would. You do.
100%. Okay. Yes. That is my biggest regret.
Is that you had just stayed single?
Yep.
Until when?
Whenever.
You just would think you
forever. I mean, I think I would, knowing now.
Yeah.
Knowing what I know now.
Right.
I know that I would have been fine.
Yeah.
Really. Not just like I'm fine, but actually fine.
So for the person listening who's thinking, I'm not going to be fine. Everybody I know is a family. Yep. I don't have any friends who are single moms. I can't be by myself.
I would say do the work on yourself.
Like through therapy? Like when people say do the work.
Whatever you need. Okay. Whatever you need. If it's through a therapist, great. If it's through prayer, great. If it's through a church group, great. If it's through just your friends, great. If it's by yourself, great.
Because had you not made peace with everything? Like when you met...
I had made peace with nothing.
With nothing.
I had dealt with nothing.
You brought it all with you.
Yes.
Okay.
And all I did was put Band-Aids on it.
Okay.
I did not deal with anything.
Okay.
I did not even like acknowledge my own feelings at all.
When did you know that this marriage was not going to work out?
I mean, before we got married. No.
Did you though? Did you get married thinking this is probably not a great idea?
Questioned it.
You did?
Yes. And I've never said that out loud.
Wow. Yes. This is like an exclusive. Barbara Walters exclusive. You heard it here first.
Yes. Absolutely.
Wow.
But again, I'm like, no. This is just the fear again, right?
Yeah.
The fear of the unknown, the fear of being alone. And I'm not afraid of being actually being alone.
Yeah.
But being alone and being alone are different. Right. Being alone, spending a couple of nights alone when you have somebody is different than being alone.
Forced to be alone.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I was terrified of being alone.
So you should have been alone more. Okay. So when did you actually know I can't stay in this marriage anymore?
It's so strange. I mean, I don't feel like there was like an event, or it was a true wake up call. Like
how
literally,
long had you been married at this point?
Less than 2 years.
Okay. So I probably hadn't, when I saw you then, as we were just talking about, I don't think I had seen you. Maybe seen you once.
Yeah. I think me, you, and Annie had lunch once.
Probably, yeah. But again, I think
we weren't married yet then, I don't think. Were we engaged maybe?
Yeah.
Maybe I was engaged.
I can't remember.
I can't either.
Okay. So you know this is not going to work out. And you just are like, I'd rather be alone?
At that point?
Were you thinking, okay, this time I'm going to be alone?
Yes. And I was looking forward to it.
You were. So you were like, I didn't take the time. You were where you never took the time.
That was the biggest, like, when I first started dating John, I actually had, like, me and my mom had, similar to what I went through with you and Annie, I went through with her.
Yes, I remember that.
Where I pulled away from her because she didn't agree. She did not agree. And she was extremely vocal about it.
Yeah.
As your mom should be. And I just was not hearing any of it. I refused to hear any of it. And she was like, well, I know I'm not going to get through to you, and I'm going to have to watch you make all these mistakes. And she pulled away from me a little bit, which she needed to. And I understood.
Yeah.
But there was definitely like a tension between us.
Yeah.
She moved to Florida. That's not why. She was always going to move to Florida, but that helped a little bit,
like
put a little distance between it.
Watching a train wreck in slow motion. Like, you know it's coming eventually. You just don't know when it's coming, and you don't know how to steer you, like, you know, pull that lever to guide you back on that right track. And at some point, I think people just start like jumping off because it's so hard to watch.
And I feel like it's probably one of the most, I mean, I haven't done a whole lot of research on it, but I feel like it's probably a pretty common mistake that newly divorced people go through.
Is what?
Making all, like, just jumping in. Because you just want to fill that. And you want, and you're mourning a loss.
Yeah.
You know, you're mourning a loss of what you had.
Did it feel like a death?
Yeah. Yeah.
Did it feel like a death, not of him, but of a life?
Yes.
The life you thought you were going to have.
And I think you go through all the grieving, and which I'm, again, not great at that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
you have to force yourself.
And I didn't do any of it.
Okay.
I think I slowly did in time, but I was in a relationship with somebody while I was doing it.
Okay. So you were already remarried at the time.
Or like engaged, you know, like it was 4 years that we were together, and then married for 2 of it, a little less than 2.
You were together with him for 4 years?
Yeah.
Wow.
It was immediate.
That's true. Gosh, that does not, wow. Okay. I mean, it's longer than I was thinking it was. Okay.
Yeah.
So you decide you're getting divorced. Well, I saw you in December.
I didn't really even talk to anyone. That was the other thing.
Was I like the first person that knew?
Probably one of, which is, again, is so, I mean, and that wasn't the relationship we had then, right? But I'm like, guess what?
I was like, hey, I apologize if I wasn't the best of friends. I really want to meet your new husband. Too late.
Well,
he's gone. He's gone.
So yeah, I think I think I slowly came to it.
Okay.
In a very subconscious way.
Yeah.
And then had an actual moment of, nope, this is not the life I want.
Wow.
This is not the life I want. You know, my kids are getting older.
Yeah.
I'm looking at what my life looks like after that.
Oh, okay. When they're gone.
Yeah. Because right now I can fully fill my time.
Yeah.
And I can escape from whatever I need to escape from by immersing myself in something else.
Yeah.
And what am I going to do when I can't do that? I would rather do that by myself.
Okay. Which is smart to know. Okay. So you decide you're getting a divorce, and
here comes the crying.
Is this when you cried? Is this the other time?
Yeah.
Really? I don't think I knew.
Well, it's funny.
Okay.
So yes, I decide that and I talked to my mom about it, and she was, again, fully supportive.
Fully on board, yeah.
Fully on board, and never disliked him.
Okay.
You know, like,
just for you, she thought it was the right decision.
Yes.
Yeah.
It wasn't about that. It wasn't about any kind of mistreatment or any kind of, like, it wasn't like it was before.
Right.
Where she was sort of like pushing me towards that. This time it was just, I fully support you and I'm not surprised kind of thing, which made me feel better.
Yeah. Like, I want you to be happy.
I just want you to be happy. And we're, you know, I'm at a very different point in my life right now, but that was, you know, and anybody that I had talked to, and I wasn't a lot. I keep my circle pretty small.
Yeah.
You know, 2 friends and that I told, and my mom, and every one of them was like, we just want you to be happy. Whatever that looks like, we just want you to be happy.
Okay.
I didn't have all the fear of, like, I mean, it had been almost 7 years that I was without my kids every other weekend, without them on vacations. You know, I was okay to be alone.
Okay.
And I knew that. Was it sad? Was I still sad? Every single time they left, I was sad. Every single time they left, I had a moment of panic of like, I'm alone. Like, what am I going to do? How am I going to fill my time?
Right.
But you do. You figure it out. And it wasn't always, I'm not a big like, go out, do that. Like a lot of times, it was spent alone. And maybe that's probably when I was doing my healing.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't alone. I had somebody there.
Right.
But I felt alone.
Okay.
I still felt alone.
So he's sitting on the couch with you, but you're still alone.
Yeah.
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 Because your kids are gone.
Yeah.
And now you're like hyper aware of how not great
that.
This is.
Yep.
Yeah.
But in those moments, I would think, I'd rather just do this by myself.
Wow. So in a shocking twist of events.
Well, so then I told the kids.
Oh, you told the kids. Okay.
And I picked Maddie up from school. I'll use their names, right?
Yeah.
Picked her up from school.
I picked up child A.
I know, the youngest child. No, picked her up from school. And I started to tell her, I said, I've decided that I want to end our marriage, and just started bawling.
She did?
I did.
Oh, you did?
I started.
Was she like, I have never seen my mom cry?
She sat in the front seat like this.
Statue?
Didn't even blink. Like,
because she just didn't know what to do?
They've never seen me cry. My kids have never seen me cry.
Oh my God.
And she did start to cry, not because she was sad.
You were crying.
Yes. And she just said pretty much what everyone else said. She said, basically in her own words, like, I trust you. And I want you to be happy too.
Yeah.
Which, again, I'm
now
like,
you're really crying.
But I'm like, to me, the reason I was crying was and I told her this, and I didn't plan it. I'm also like, I was like, I got to say it. I've got to tell them. So I told them each separately.
Oh, you didn't tell them all together?
No, because of the nature of our life right now. Yeah. They were hardly ever all together at the same time. It's very hard to get everyone together at the same time outside of, like, I couldn't tell them at home.
Yeah.
Right. I had to take them in the car and tell them. My oldest drives. We're never in the car together.
Right.
So anyway, I said, I just feel like such a failure. I feel like I cannot believe I'm doing this to you again. And I'm so embarrassed, and I just feel like a failure. And they were like, she was like, Mom, you are not a failure. Like, just all the nice things that, I mean, she didn't say a lot because she was literally like she had seen a ghost.
I bet.
I don't think she knew how to react.
Were they surprised, do you think?
Probably.
Yeah.
Because again, I didn't act like anything was wrong.
Okay.
I didn't act like anything. Yeah. So yes and no, I guess. I mean,
so you've told the kids.
I feel like I was a bit of like a shell of myself for the last, which I hope that they didn't see, but I'm sure that they did in a way. But so then Alex had a football game. So picked him up on the way home from the football game. Now I just have him.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Crying again?
Yes.
Wow. Why do you think?
I don't know. It was crazy. And then he started to cry because he's never seen me cry.
Right.
And he was like, Mom, like, oh my gosh, you are not a failure. Like, you're our everything. Like, we would never think that. We would never, please do not think that we think that. Yeah. Like, none of us think that. So then I called Ethan and I was like, hey, I told Alex, we went and picked up Maddie, and she was like, got in the car, and I'm like, I told him. And she was like, oh, God. She didn't know what to say. I didn't cry again. And then we went and picked up Ethan, and I was like, let's just go. We went to Chick-fil-A, drove to Chick-fil-A, and we just sat in the car and ate our Chick-fil-A. And I told him the same thing that I told them. And he was like, really? You cried for them?
You didn't cry for him?
No, I was like,
you were all cried out.
That's what I told him. I was like, I'm all cried out, dude. Like, I've got nothing left. And he was like, really?
That's it.
I didn't get the crying. I was like, so we kind of like laughed about that because, and then I didn't cry again. I got it out. But it was like, I had to be vulnerable in front of them, I think. Like, it made me feel like that. And I think they also needed that. Even that wasn't my intention. Like, I wasn't like, I'm going to cry on cue because they need to feel this. But I think that it helped them in a way. I don't know. Because they've never seen it. And I don't know if they ever will again. Maybe. But it really surprised me. Like, I was like, I was like literally looking at my face in the mirror. I'm like, what do I even look like when I cry?
I've
like,
never seen myself cry before.
Never. I mean, in so long that I couldn't remember the last time.
So you tell them.
So I told them, and I felt it was, before when I said it out loud, it was like terrifying.
Yeah.
This was like more empowering.
Okay.
This was like, let's just get this done.
Okay.
Like I really just wanted to get it done.
Yeah.
I had very little, I didn't have the same emotions attached to it.
Okay.
I think for several reasons. One, it was shorter. We didn't have kids together. All the things that were there before were not there this time. As far as
you had another person you had to tell.
Yeah.
How much? Okay.
Went back to my same attorney. Went back to my same divorce attorney. I'm like, repeat? How many repeat clients do you have? Which is like surprisingly a lot.
Surprisingly a lot. Okay. So you filed for divorce,
Yeah.
And then
it was done in 60. I mean, it was fast.
It was fast. It was fast.
It was very fast. Okay. I mean, there was not a lot to deal with. And in that way, I was very thankful. But
so you have to tell Scott at some point.
Yes. So that was back to telling people.
Yeah.
I remember talking to, wasn't my mom? I think it was just another friend, one of my other friends who has become like, she was like my person.
Right.
I told her everything. Not everything. Like I wasn't like, I still feel like I dropped a bomb a bit. People were like, what? We didn't know you were unhappy.
Yeah.
Like really?
Yeah.
Well, I have been for a long time. So that's not that's the reaction I get from people whenever I tell them anything. So that reaction doesn't surprise me. But I remember saying like, I just totally lost my train of thought.
Scott.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Scott.
I was like,
back to Scott.
I said to her, it's so strange, but the person I really feel like I want to talk to is him. And we had a good relationship at this point, meaning we were like very kind to each other. We were totally on the same page with the kids. We could go to things together,
okay.
Like events, school events and games, and it was not awkward. And we'd moved past that. But we didn't have the kind of, like, we weren't talking. Like we didn't talk on the phone.
Right.
We texted about the kids. We
that was it.
Made plans.
Yeah.
And very civil, but not, I wouldn't say we had a relationship.
Okay.
And I said, it's so strange because the only person I feel like who's really going to understand this is him. And I was like, so I'm going to call him. I'm going to call him because not just because I want to talk to him, but like this affects our kids and I need him. I don't want them to tell him mom's getting divorced again. I want to tell him myself because again, I still am like having this. I mean, I definitely felt embarrassed and felt like a failure, but not to the point where it was going to keep me from doing anything. Yeah. And I wasn't like beating myself up over it, but those were like my like really true like inner feelings. And so I called him and he was like, is everything okay? And I was like, well, no, it's not great, And he was about to go on a trip to Europe. And he was like, and I really was like, should I tell him now? And be like, have a great trip.
Right.
Or should I just wait till he gets back?
Yeah.
So I told him, but very like, I was literally outside walking around my pool while I was talking on the phone to him.
Yeah.
And just being like, even said to him, I was like, this is weird, like talking to you about this. And I'm sorry if it's weird. I said, but I kind of feel like you're the only one who really gets it from the kid perspective. And I was thinking, and mine too, but I really kind of kept it about them.
Yeah.
So this affects them, whether or not, it's not like the first loss, right? They're not losing their, it's not the same, but it's still a big change and just a big deal in their life. I mean, this is their story, right? That I'm creating for them. Yeah. And this is not the one that I would have wanted to create for them. So he was like, his reaction surprised me because I thought he was going to, I don't know. I just thought he would kind of like be like, yeah, we'll deal with it. They'll be fine. Kind of like, I'm living my life. Like, good luck.
Right.
In a nice way, but like, best of luck to you. And, we'll deal with the kids and it'll be fine. And his reaction was not that. It was very like, he was genuinely like sad for me. And I was like, oh, I'm not not used to that.
Right.
I'm not used to that from anyone, especially from him.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, it's okay,
Yeah.
And he's like, no. He's like, I just feel like none of this should be happening. And like, it just, I think it just brought back a lot of
memories
and emotions that we both still had and carried and kind of like just didn't let go of.
Yeah.
But it really took me like by surprise. In a good way though.
Yeah.
Not in like normally when things take me by surprise, I'll just be like, no, we're just gonna.
Right. But you were surprised by his reaction and how much you liked his reaction.
100% surprised. And it just felt so nice to hear.
Yeah.
Like it really did. I was like, that is exactly what I needed. And I didn't even know that I needed that. But that is what I needed. So then I felt like, okay, everything's going to be okay.
So he went to Europe.
And he came back and we left it as like, let's go have a coffee when you get back. And, we'll figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever. We, meaning we'll figure like,
the kids,
they're going to be fine. Like they're older, they understand, but I was like, I need to hear that from him. No one knows them better than we do.
Yeah.
So we did. We went and got a coffee. I don't even remember when this was, and we just talked like just about a lot of stuff. I mean, I don't remember. I mean, we talked a lot about this.
Yeah.
Obviously. And we did talk about the kids, and he was like, I told him all the things that I had told them. I did not cry again, but I told him that I did. He laughed, he's never seen me cry either, really.
He's like, wait, what?
And he's like, you did? And I said, yes, but not for Ethan, just for Alex.
Yeah.
Just for Alex. And I said, and he said, no, you are not a failure. Like you were the furthest thing from a failure. Like you're strong and you're like a great mom. And like, regardless of whatever has happened in their lives, like you have kept them at a constant state of like, you've kept them present and where they were. Like they never skipped a beat, and you never skipped a beat. And I was like, oh, thank you.
Yeah. Just nice to hear it.
So nice to hear it. I'm not a big, that's not my love language. I don't need that, but it was so nice to hear.
Did you start feeling like, was there anything like in that moment where you were like, like, did you ever start, like, did you feel in that moment anything for him again?
I just felt a sense of, I felt sad again.
That it was over with him?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I felt that all that rush of like, gosh, what if I had just stuck it out? Or what if maybe I didn't make the right decision? Right. Or, he's so different now than he was. But then, the rational part of you is like, no, like.
It was good.
It was everything that happened needed to happen. But he is very different now.
Right.
He's completely different.
And it's been a long time.
And it's been a really long time. And we've lived a lot of life apart.
Yes.
But that's also sad. That made me sad too.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm here having this conversation with you and I'm talking about like a husband who's not you.
Who's not you.
And you've been in relationships, and it was a lot. It was a whole lot.
So when you leave.
So we left it and, we didn't make plans to talk again or do anything again. And, but I left, I got in my car and I vividly remember feeling like there was a lot of stuff left unsaid there. There were a lot of things that I did not say because I'm not going to say them.
Right. Did he feel that way?
I didn't ask him. I mean, now I know.
Now you know.
But I didn't ask him then. I felt like it was mutual. That's how I felt. And then I'm like, am I
losing it? Yeah.
Am I losing it? Am I way reading into something that didn't just happen? Or am I on? Am I actually like getting these feelings correct? And the feelings were not like, I wasn't like, it was just a feeling of like, just a lot of things I hadn't felt in a long time.
So how long, when did you then start going, okay, there's something, or when did you guys decide?
So then we just started kind of being in communication more.
Okay.
Or he would check in, make sure I was okay. Is everything going okay?
Like you were dating again, kind of.
Yes.
Kind of.
Yeah, but like, no, like we were friends again.
Okay.
Like, which we hadn't been friends in a really long time.
Yeah.
So he felt like a friend. And then we had a conversation one night, and I said, that day that we had coffee, I felt like, and again, this is like big of me, right? Like,
right.
I don't.
To be the one that says it, yes.
I felt like there were a lot of things left unsaid and a lot of feelings. I had a rush of feelings that I wasn't expecting.
Yeah.
And I didn't bring it up, but I left feeling like we left a lot of stuff on the table.
Right.
And he was just said, oh boy.
Wow.
And then it was a lot of talking.
Yeah.
And healing, really.
Yeah.
But like healing, we had both done our own separate healing.
Yeah.
Him more traditionally, mine less so.
You're less so. You did your own healing, yes. So where are you at today with him? Are you going to talk about that?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I would love you to talk about it because I know. I know. It's not a secret.
It is not a secret.
It's not going to be a secret anymore.
Absolutely not a secret. We are.
I feel like it's a secret, but it's not a secret.
Today we are happily back together.
I mean, I just.
As a family.
I feel like I'm one of the people that get to say, I just can't believe it.
So going back to our lunch when you were going to apologize and say, I want to meet John. And I was like, boom, I got a bomb for you. You know, like,
I was like, oh, thank
not only
God,
did
I don't
I
have
say,
to meet him. Oh.
Not only did I say, no, you don't have to do that.
Yeah.
I said, guess what?
Yeah. And I was just, I just could not even, believe it. And then I remember telling John and I was like, you are just not going to believe it. But I remember he just was like, I'm so happy for them. Like, I'm so happy that they worked this out.
The best thing is like the feeling whole again.
Yeah.
For me, that's how I feel. And and it's very important, like distinction that I make, that it's not, I don't feel whole because I got my life back.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? Like, because I didn't. My life
is still different.
What we have now is completely different than what we had then.
Okay.
It's not a prize, you know, like I don't want, I don't care what people think, but I don't want him to ever think that we're back together because I feel like it's what I just, it's what I always deserved. Right. And this was the grand prize. Yes. And now I'm the winner.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Because it kind of, it feels like that but not in like a superficial way.
Yeah.
In like a real way.
Could you ever have gotten where you are with him today if you hadn't separated?
100% no. And so when I first told him about the divorce and he felt so sad, part of that I think was because he's like, I can't believe you have to go through this again. If what had happened between us had never happened, then you wouldn't be going through this again. And I just always say to him, and have, like, since we've been back to like talking again, even before being back together again, I have no resentment. I have no regret because we would never, either of us, whether we were together or not, would be where we are now.
Right.
In a healthy, like, mental space way without that having happened. Yeah. We just wouldn't. I think we would have just stayed the course.
Wow.
And I'm glad that we didn't.
Yeah.
And, mistakes were made.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
But I'm also not sorry for that.
Right.
Because I think it got, like I said, I healed in my own way.
Well, it's like a full 360 redemption story.
I almost had to go through it. I had to go through it to know, number one, that I was going to be fine, to be by myself. But also, number two, to know that I was healthy enough to be with Scott again.
Yeah.
Because I have to match his level of healthiness. And, and that's hard.
Yeah.
Because he's really done a lot of work and he's has like the self-awareness that's like envious.
Is he like would you say he's now like the man you always knew he could be? Like he was always in there? You always knew he was in there?
And I tell him that. And I'm like, I married you and fell in love with you because I knew who you were at the core.
Yeah.
That was lost somewhere along the way. And you found it. And you got it.
Yeah.
And you did it.
Yeah.
And not everyone can do that.
No.
And it never in a million years would I have said we would be back here.
Same. I would literally have never once said you would have gotten back together.
Not because I really didn't. I didn't have. Strangely, I never was like mad at him. I don't know. I guess I was. Yeah. I was just mad in general. But I never really even talked that badly about him. Yeah. You know, like not to my kids or not to other people. I just kind of said, "This is the hand that I've been dealt, and I'm gonna just springboard off from here, and I'm gonna be fine." But I never ever thought we would be back here.
And look at you now. Well, I am so glad that you came here today, and I'm so glad you shared your story. And I'm glad that, I don't know, it just feels like it really was one of those things that's like this full circle of like, you and I reconnecting again. And I think too, like that's another thing of just being vulnerable with somebody and being honest and being like, this is what I'm bringing to the table. This was my concern and vice versa. And being big enough that you don't get your feelings hurt or, being able to take responsibility for things. And I don't know. It just feels like it's kind of big full circle, but
for sure feels
you're circle. Like, it's my life. Yes, it is. Well, I think that you have probably inspired a lot of women who are going through something similar to kind of just stay their path and stay true to themselves. And
so it's easy to get lost and it's easy to grasp onto things that seem like quick fixes.
Yeah.
And I feel like that is the biggest mistake. You have to just be, even if it's so uncomfortable and so scary.
Just be still.
Just be still and let yourself just feel all the things.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having me. Love you.
All right. Thanks.